Hello, and welcome to today's episode of The Supporting Actor. I'm Adrienne Streeter, your host, and I am so excited about our conversation today. But before we jump in, make sure you click like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit that notification bell so that when we do upload new content, you will be reminded. So, without further ado, let's bring on Executive Director of a special education program here in Baton Rouge, Kristy Monsour. Kristy, come on in the studio and join me. Hi,
Hi,
how are you?
Adrienne.
How are
Good.
you
How are you?
doing?
Good. Thanks for having me today.
Oh, listen, I'm excited to talk to you because we've had so many different resources on, but we have yet to have anyone who actually works in the education system to come on and talk
Wonderful.
to us a little bit about how things work within the space of education. So, without further ado, I'm just going to jump right on into my questions. Can you tell us a little bit about, and before we actually do that, I do want to tell my audience that Kristy works for the St. Margaret of Costello Reach program, and I know she'll speak more on that. But before I wanted to ask this question, I wanted to establish that. So tell us a little bit more about your organization and maybe its history.
Sure. I'd love to. The St. Margaret of Costello Reach program was founded back in 1962 under Bishop Tracy. It's gone through many names. This is the latest name that we made up in 2015 when we
Okay.
started branching out to other schools. It used to be called Guardian Angels back in the day. And it has been started at Redemptorist High School, and it has been through the diocese building. It has been at St. Louis, King of France. Around
Oh, wow.
2015, there was a need to expand as more than one location. So they moved into various schools in the diocese, and it became known as the REACH program, which stands for Religious Education for All Children. And these schools, these host schools, give us a classroom space to have our students come and be a part of their campus.
So it sounds like your program is within a school, almost like a school within a school. Am I understanding that correctly?
Correct. So our students are students of the Diocese of Baton Rouge Department of Special Education. And these 5 schools that we're in give us a classroom space, but our department runs the program. We do all the admissions, we hire the teachers, we do the academics, and we work on the host schools, integrating them into their day-to-day scheduling and curriculum and environment and things like that.
So then if we go back a little bit back to, did you say 1962?
1962.
1962. That's such a long time for educators to realize that we need to create a space for children to really expand on where they are. Can you tell us a little bit about what was the original, or maybe even now, what is the current problem that the organization is looking to solve by partnering with the Diocese of Baton Rouge and their special ed program?
So there are many more students nowadays, we find, that have diagnoses of autism, intellectual disability, Down syndrome, other health impairments such as cerebral palsy, even severe ADHD. And these families want their children to be in a Catholic school, which is a safe environment when they can practice their faith, as well as being in the same school with their other siblings.
Mhm.
Typically, special needs students would have to have their own classroom at a different school, and the Catholic school system just didn't have the means to educate them. But it has grown over these last 62 years. To include them, and that way families can stay together and be in their parish.
I love that. And I love that they're able to stay with their siblings, because sometimes that small, act will help a child who may have a special need. So, kind of stepping back, you all cater to students with all types of special needs and or disabilities.
Correct. We have all those that I just named. We also have some physical impairments. We're not quite wheelchair ready in all of the locations. We don't have the one-on-one help for that. You know, in a public school, you can have your own assistant, but we're
Mhm.
private pay, so that would cost a whole lot of money in tuition when it's already pretty high. But yeah, so we try to meet their needs as best as we can. We have, you know, like I said, some physical limitations, a little mobility limitations, some hearing, a lot of delay, just delay communication. You know, sometimes when they're little, they're just not quite ready to talk yet, but
Yeah.
we help them along in that process with our specially trained teachers to do that. And that way they can still participate in big school activities, just, you know, in our program, in our department.
That is so important. I think that when you look at being able to provide that service to all families, no matter what the situation and circumstances, is super important. That's really, really cool. So, how do you find your instructors now that you kind of have told us that your teachers are, or you have a wide variety of students that have a special need and or disability? How do you find teachers that are suitable to their circumstances?
So most of my teachers have children or family members or experience with
Mm,
a student with a disability, and they has driven them to go to school to become special educators. You
mhm.
know, I'm very lucky. I've been in this job almost, this is my fourth year,
Okay.
and I have my special ed teachers have stayed. You know, I really don't have to find them. Um,
Wow.
we've grown, and so I've had to get new ones, and they have been referred to us by current teachers or current families. We're very, very lucky. Mine all have different qualities. You know, some are great with behavior, some are great with communication. You know, some are great with the developmental process. They're very unique individuals with a lot of special gifts and talents and patience. Yeah.
That is amazing because, you know, turnover in education is so high right now. And
Yeah.
so to hear that there is that stability within the diocese is so important, because I know that that in and of itself leads to a healthier environment for some children who may like consistency and not necessarily like to see, you know, one teacher here Tuesday and next Thursday
Yeah.
there's a new
And,
teacher. So,
you know, for our teachers, it's more of a comfortable lifestyle in that in a public school setting, you have a lot of state requirements you have to meet, a lot of paperwork they have to do, and it's very taxing. And they don't get as much time as they would like with the students. And so, you
mhm,
know, here we do have our own paperwork, of course, but the curriculum is driven by the student need. So they get to
mm,
kind of be a part in the creation and development of what these kids are learning and experiencing every day. So it's a good outlet for them, and they're not kept down by so much paperwork with us.
yes.
Yeah.
So then what does a typical day, if there is such a thing, what does a typical day look like in the classroom setting for your students?
So, you know, most of our students do have autism. So, a very scheduled day is important.
Mhm,
We like to try to keep things on a routine. And, you know, there's
mhm,
always a change of routine. So, we let them know ahead of time, but they adapt very well.
good.
Um, so a typical day, the students are all going to come together for a morning meeting for calendar, you know, welcoming, all of those morning activities. And then we break up into groups. So each student goes in a small group for reading and a small group for math throughout the day, as well as different centers. They also go to lunch with their grade level peers who are out in the
Mm,
general ed environment. Also in the day, they'll go to enrichment classes. So for example, if we have third graders, they will tag on to one of the school's third grade classes and join them in their enrichment class, like an art or music and PE type of class. So all of that is kind of comes out of the day. Plus, a lot of them have speech therapies. So it's a very regimented schedule of getting all of our minutes in, plus all of the social time needed
Yes.
for these kids to get that social peer interaction.
And, Christy, I love that because I think I've said it and shared with our audience, growing up, I'm gonna maybe tell my age a little bit, but growing up, when there was a child with a special need, when I was in elementary school, they just kind of whisked the kids off to a separate room and you never saw them. You didn't even ride the same school bus with them. And it was just this thing where we unfortunately in society created this mindset of, oh, that's them. They're not part of us. And so I love that, yes, they may have their English and their math separate, but their enrichment courses, they're still with their peers. And I think that that's important to teach our other students about being advocacy and allies to our peers that may not look like us or may
Yes.
not function like us, and I
And
think that's super important.
it does. And you hit the nail on the head. And this is what these principals of these schools really appreciate is that it develops a sense of empathy with their children.
Yep.
Our students have big buddies, and they'll come and do things with them. We've had a high school group come with us to a field trip
Mhm.
to be with the kids. They're really spread out amongst the community. I mean, they can play sports with them, when
Mhm.
our and cheerleading, and when
Yep.
our kids are out there, these other players are cheering them on.
Yep.
They've grown in the beginning. It takes a little bit to
Mhm.
develop that empathy and understanding, but we've never had an instance of a bullying. I mean, that's not
Yep.
allowed at all. Zero tolerance. If anything happens, that's taken care of. But we don't really have that. It's really more, these teachers reach out to us to do things with our kids because
Mhm.
their kids love it.
And I think that's so important because 'cause we're creating the next generation. And I think some of the stigmatism that we have around special education, it needs to be broken, and I think programs like the REACH program is just a testament to the success that you might not see it in your day to day, but I promise you what you're doing is just bettering our country in so many ways. So thank
And
you
these,
from me to
oh,
you.
it's a privilege and a pleasure for me to be able to do this. Sometimes I don't feel worthy.
Mm,
Lots of prayers going up every day when I have to make decisions, and especially with admissions, that
mm,
gets pretty tough. But one of my favorite things to do is to meet the families. Anytime a
yeah,
family is interested in the program, I'll meet them at one of our schools, sit down with them for 30, 45 minutes, talk about their child and our program, and then we take a walk back to the classroom. And,
yeah.
our kids are so welcoming when they come in. They want to talk to the parents and they want to give the tour of the classroom. Um, these kids really speak for themselves, and the parents generally feel just really welcomed when they come to visit. Our kids are 100% angels, saints on earth. In my eyes, they do
Love it.
nothing wrong. Um, so they're just a gift to be able to be around. And when I'm, get stuck up in the office sometimes doing all this paperwork, I make an intention to go to these classes so I can
Mhm,
realize what I'm doing this for, to be with
mhm.
those amazing kids. We have 77 kids right now.
I was gonna ask you about that. Now, what grades are your primary grades? Are you just
We're
primary
K to
or are you
12. K to
K
12.
through 12?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And what does I'll hold that one off because I do
Okay.
have a question about that. But kind of going back on something that you were saying about not unfortunately being able to accept everyone, what would you say are some of the challenges that you all face from a day-to-day operations standpoint or just in general?
Right. So, as far as not being able to accept some, one is space.
Mm,
We are restricted on our classroom space. If we had unlimited space, we would take everybody in. So that can be challenging because the schools do provide us a space, but sometimes it's kind of what they have left, or they have one classroom left, and we like to keep our numbers small. So we have 10 students per teacher and assistant. So there's 10
Okay.
students per class. As they get a little older, we can go to 12 or so. And the high school has 16, but we have 3 teachers. So,
Okay.
But when they're little, it's really the challenge of space. Sometimes if their needs are more cumbersome than we can handle in our space or with the number of adults we have, we'll have to work with the families on somewhere else they can go that'll meet their needs. But I'm never going to leave them high and dry. We're going to figure out where they're going to go.
Good.
And we've also had families come in who I really feel could be a member of the general ed classes. So I help them get into a school as well, just to give them guidance. But another challenge would be funding. The tuition is high. I mean, my elementary schools right now are about $13,000 a year because of the numbers. We have low number to student to teacher ratio, so we have to pay for them.
Exactly.
We're a nonprofit. We don't make money, but we need to pay for, the services and the materials, and that tends to be challenging for some of the families to afford. So I know more families could come to us, but the price tag is hefty. So we're always working on fundraising. We're working on getting, donations and financial assistance. The state does give us some financial assistance through certain scholarship programs. So that's helpful.
So you all are a 501c3, correct?
Yes.
All right. So tell us your website. How can our audience go and donate? We will take all funds legally.
Yeah.
to support. Yeah.
The direct website is www.diobr.org/reach.
Easy enough.
That's it.
And I think my producer's going to have that at the bottom of the screen here soon. So if you are feeling very blessed, I know we in 2023 had a really amazing Giving Tuesday campaign for several of our organizations that we had interviewed. And that is a huge day, but you don't have to wait until November. You can give now. So if you are in our audience and you want to help support Kristy and the organization Reach over at the Diocese of Baton Rouge, please feel free to go to diobr.org/reach. Did I get that right?
You did.
All right, perfect.
Yeah.
Well, I have a couple of more questions for you. I know that oftentimes some schools, whether they're private, charter, they have a very limited space that you talked about. But some schools want parents to come into the space and volunteer. Do you all have volunteer opportunities for parents to come into the classroom and support their child and or other children?
Absolutely. We have days when we have, field events, parties, craft days, field trips. We always invite our parents to everything. So it is, as long as you pass the child protection background that we all have to go through,
Yes.
we're good to go.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love volunteering at my girls' school. I don't have enough time, but, obviously I have a full-time job, but yes, as much as time as I can, I love giving my time to them.
Yeah. And, we're a big family and all the kids know everybody's parents. And
I
it's,
love that.
everybody's a part of the Reach family. It's a really unique situation. These families have had such hard, challenging times with these children growing up. Special needs requires a lot of doctors and therapies and different schools and, accommodations, all the things that they have to do. And they form a community when you can find people, the parents all are friends with each other. Our kids go to each other's houses. When you can find people who can relate, it's so helpful.
And I think that's exactly why we started the supporting actor and how we got our name, because we believe that our child, your children are the shining stars and we are supporting them on their journey, whether that journey is going to physical therapy, occupational therapy, whatever it is, we're supporting you, meaning the child, or young adult, because we've had a special here about our children grow up to be adults. They don't just at 18 become, full functioning adults in society. The needs that they had as children may differ, but they're still there. So we've had that conversation as well. So kind of going back, before I let you go, because I know you're super busy and I appreciate you just sharing some of your time with us today. Christy, kind of going back, what do your goals look like for as we are now in a new year? What would you say is the organization's 5, 10, even 20-year goal for the Baton Rouge area in supporting the community of special needs children?
So I would say there are three major goals that I work toward. One is funding. I would love to get an endowment to be able to just consistently give financial aid.
Mm,
Another is space, because we need the space. We know we have so many more kids needing services now that we need more schools to open up a space
yeah.
for our program to come in. And some schools can't because they're locked tight with classrooms. They may not have the space. But I'm hoping that we can find some more. And then third would be to see how to even integrate them even more. I
Mm,
feel like we do a pretty good job of integrating the kids, but there can always be a lot more done to make them truly a part
mhm.
of the program. So, funding, space, and further integration. And that's something the schools are willing to work with us on. We just have to come up with the ways to do it and the logistics. So those are some big goals of ours.
Well, I kinda just fibbed. I said that was my last question, but
You
now
ask
I thought
away.
okay, perfect. So it may not be my last question. But one of the things that came to my mind is parents in terms of obviously they can volunteer. You've talked a little bit about how the parents can learn about the program through the diocese. Um, how else can the parents learn about the program and or request your services through that expansion that you're talking about? If they learn of what you're doing at the diocese and they want you somewhere else, can they work with their schools to request your services there?
Yeah, they can. If it all arises from a need, everything that we do and how it started arises from a need. So there's more of a need out there. And I know there's families that live further out where we don't have schools that would want one. They are welcome to come to me, welcome to go to their school principal or pastor to
Mhm.
make it to start something there. And it doesn't have to be big. I mean, some schools we have 20 kids, and in other ones we have 16, or we have 10 in one of them. So um, it's varied. It doesn't have to be one strict formula.
I love that. I love that. Christy, I think that, for me, a lot of times when people think of special ed within the school or the sped teacher, they have this notion in their minds. And I think that this conversation has really kind of opened up that notion of how education and partnerships really can help that relationship. And it sounds like you're very supported not only by the parents, but by the school. Can you talk a little bit about the partnership that you have with the school that you're in as hosts?
Yeah, so they treat our students like theirs. They wear the uniform. They make sure that they're on every list that they can get on, as far as field trips, because they can go to field trips with certain grade levels that they're
Nice.
in. They make sure they get all the information that's delivered to all the parents. They make sure my teachers go to their luncheons and get their faculty perks.
Nice.
They really do. They announce us on the birthdays. They celebrate our wins, so it's good. And sometimes when they get a student in their environment that they think might be too much for them,
Mhm.
they'll work with me to see if we can move them on over to keep them in the same school, but in our classroom, if we can meet their needs better. So it is truly a partnership with them.
I love that, and I think that is so important, just to know that there's a strong relationship between your program and it doesn't feel forced. Like sometimes you find out that there are programs that are integrated, but they may not have such a seamless effort
Yeah.
in their relationship, and that ultimately will reflect upon what can be done for the students. But it sounds like you guys have it down packed, and
It
I'm
takes
super.
work. It takes work to get there, but no, it's truly for the kids. You know,
Mhm.
so we have to give up some things sometimes in us to really focus on what do they need and what is best for them.
But I think that that speaks to the Jesus-like mentality in
Yeah,
terms of servitude, that what is it that I have to release so that I can serve for your best
that's
interests?
right.
Yep,
It's all for the kids.
it's for the kids.
For the kids.
Christy, this has been a phenomenal conversation, and I appreciate you just opening up your time and sharing with us. I look forward to having more conversations with you, and if there's such an outpour, we may have you on again. We've had that already. We've had people say, "I want to hear part two," and so stand by. I might be reaching back out to you for a
Thank
part two
you.
conversation.
Well, thank you for your interest in our program and willing to talk to me and question and happy to talk to you anytime. It's been
Well,
great.
thank you so much, Christy. I appreciate it. And if you guys want to learn more about the organization, you can see at the bottom of our screen, going across, we have the St. Margaret of Castillo Reach program. You can reach out to them at csobr.org backslash, I can't speak, special ed hyphen, special hyphen education hyphen one. Y'all, that was a mouthful.
You can just go to CSOBR. We'll get you there. You can find
Okay, perfect,
us.
perfect. Well, Christy, thank you so much, and I appreciate your time. Have a great one.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Y'all, what a wonderful conversation. I think for me, I've learned so much about the resources that we have here in the Baton Rouge area. And I know that not all of our audience members live here in Baton Rouge. So if you are curious about programs like the REACH program for your child, please reach out to your school district and just determine if there is something that is in your area that's similar to our area. We appreciate Christy for giving her time for this conversation today, and we hope that you enjoyed it and that you come back for more. In the meantime, y'all have a good one, and thank you. Have a good one. Bye.